Hey folks, welcome to the What the Futures podcast, where we break down complex market trends into simple, actionable advice. It's your quick guide to better farming decisions. Hey there, welcome to the What the Futures podcast, recorded in the UPL Studio. Welcome to episode number 40. The What the Futures podcast is your weekly dose of clarity in the complex world of crop marketing. Of course, I'm your host, Ryan Denis. I've spent my career working with farmers across the prairie provinces. Even do a little bit of work with them today. I was doing some consulting earlier today. But I've spent my career working on the grain side of the business. I was a grain buyer for a couple of years. I was a grain marketing advisor. Then I turned into a marketing coach. And from there, had my own little thing going and ended up selling that to Farmers Business Network, which actually it's going to be 5 years here coming up in the next couple days. So always a little celebration in our home at the end of August with that one. So thanks for tuning in to the What the Futures podcast. This episode is a solo one. I haven't done a solo episode in a little while. I can't even remember the last time. Maybe it wasn't that long ago, but this episode, I put a little bit of a shout out or a call out, I should say, to farmers, just saying, hey, what questions do you have going into harvest here? And what came back was questions about land rental agreements, questions about crop inputs, questions about the rail strike, son of a gun, and so even price action on oats, barley, things like that. So I was getting quite a few questions here the last couple of days, and so I thought I'd toss it out there earlier today. There we go. We got a whole roster of questions to answer. And so we got that to talk about. And I also want to talk about this grain marketing seminar, conference. I don't know what you want to call it, but I want to run that past you and get your opinion. So that's kind of what we have set up for today. Of course, next week, we're actually going to have Ryan Copperthorne on back-to-back weeks. So we have a pre-recorded thing next week. And then we got to talk about the fall cattle run after that. So you'll get Ryan Copperthorne probably back to back here. All right. Now hit that subscribe button, folks. It's just a little thing you can do. You subscribe, you get a notification when we post new episodes on YouTube. Even your favorite podcast platform, you can subscribe there as well. Leave a review. Give us some stars. If you want to give us 1 star or whatever, 3 or 5. I'm just curious what people think of the show. And of course, you can drive this a little bit, drive the bus here, for the What the Futures podcast. Just, what do you want to hear about? What things are we doing well on the show? What things could I improve on? I take all feedback somewhat seriously, but I do certainly appreciate it. So go and do that for us when you get a chance. All right. Before we get further down the episode, big shout out to show sponsor John Deere. Now, of course, John Deere, we always think of John Deere as an equipment company, but they've got John Deere Operations Center. They've got a whole bunch going on the technology side. But today I was actually on the phone with Wyatt from Harvest Profit. Now, if you've been following the show for the last, 8-9 months now, I've talked a little bit about Harvest Profit, because I'm a big believer that you need to know your numbers when it comes to your business plan. You guys are operating multi-million-dollar businesses. You need to know your numbers to start your plan. I do a little bit of consulting as well. I work one-on-one with a couple of farms, right? And so today I had to get on the horn with Wyatt. I needed some help getting an account onboarded and set up. And the cool thing is you just talk to the people there. They're a small team, and they're easy to get a hold of. So I spoke to Wyatt. We got set up. And again, folks, in my consulting meetings, we talk about, right now we're talking about opportunity in a down market, in an agriculture recession, and here we are talking about opportunity. Well, it all starts with knowing your numbers. All right. That is step one. So thanks, Wyatt, for the onboarding help today. And of course, you can check that out at harvestprofit.com. And of course, you can check out all things John Deere at deere.ca. Okay, so we're going to do some housekeeping. We've got our positive moments of the week. What's cool in crop marketing, and then the mailbag is just a whopper with most of the episode here focusing on the questions that you, the farmers, have heading into the glut of harvest here. Now, for housekeeping, I'm drinking. I have another rival trade brew here. I've got the Session Ale, the Cowboy Trail, for my late night recording. But these folks over at Agfinity are they're causing me to drink a little bit here because I was chatting with my buddy Ken the other day, and Ken expected payment from Agfinity in March. Now, you guys know the Agfinity stuff. I've talked about it in the past. It's all over social media. They owe farmers an undisclosed amount of money. It is a big number. I'm only hearing what the estimates are, what the guesses are. But when people are owed six figures and aren't seeing a sniff of money, like, there's a problem here, folks. So the update, I just thought, I came up again on social media. I thought, hey, I better check in and just see if this guy got paid. He was supposed to get paid at the end of April. Never mind. It was due early March. They kept kicking him down the road into April and into May. Well, here we are, folks. I'm recording this on August 14th. He has not been paid a nickel for his barley yet. And Agfinity, I know you're listening, and thank you for listening to the show. But you guys wrote that if someone had done business with you June 1st of 2024, from that day forward, those people are getting paid. Why is it that everybody behind that's been owed money for much longer is not getting anything now or at this time? What is wrong with you guys? Okay? This is madness. And I put it on X here today as well. Like, the stuff you guys come out with is bold. Like, do you want to come on the show and talk about it and tell the farmers what is going on? Because this is ridiculous that now your policy is you do business with us June 1st of 2024 moving forward. We're going to pay you. But if you were doing business with us before that, sorry, we don't have the money to pay you right now. That is, you don't want to know the words that I want to say right now, guys. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore, but Jesus, Agfinity, get your shit together. All right. We're going to try to spin a little bit more positive here, but other things for housekeeping. Man, it's a hard transition off that one. But I do have a playlist going on YouTube. I'm not happy with it. It's What the Future's #Harvest 2024. Again, brutal transition from having to call those guys out to this. But anyways, I'm trying my best here. So my playlist is a work in progress. Okay. It's not great right now. It's a little heavier than normal. And I don't know if it's because I saw Metallica was coming to Edmonton here, and I'm debating if I should go. But anyways, it's a little heavier. I'm going to tidy it up a little bit, but there's a harvest playlist there for you in YouTube Music. And my song of the week is Whoop, There It Is by Tag Team. You know that whoop, there it is. You get it, right? It'll be in your head all day now. That's my song of the week from Tag Team. Again, I'll tidy it up a little bit. Okay, last thing for housekeeping. I talked about this last week, this grain marketing conference seminar thing. Hey, Agfinity, you're more than welcome to come to this, bring your checkbook. But grain marketing conference, I'm working on the outline here. And here's where you can add your input. Okay. You can email me, Ryan at whatthefuturespodcast.ca. So let's just follow me for a minute. So I'm thinking we have this in a town, not a big city. Okay. The town, we need some type of lodgings, someplace to sleep, motel, maybe a hotel, like old school bar has rooms in it. I don't know what it is, but place for people to stay. We need a venue that can host breakout sessions, but pardon me, it doesn't need to be in the same building. And in my estimation. It could be on the same block or very close to each other. It has to be a couple minutes walking distance, right? And I'm thinking, maybe we'll get like, I don't know if we'll have 20 farmers out there or 100 or 200. I'm not sure yet, but I'd be curious to see. And you know how back in like your college days, you would do that, like drink a small town bar dry, like you wouldn't know exactly where you were going. In your college days, everyone would pile on a couple of buses and you go over to a small town and just have a great time. I kind of want to bring that type of feel to it. So I want to blow the roof off of a few small town businesses. I'm talking about the local bar. Maybe there's a brewery there. Local caterers, motels. Just do a little bit of an injection in that community for a night or two. And so maybe we have like, for a layout. Think about this. So like the night before, maybe we do like a little meet and greet. Somewhere pretty casual. Do we do a meet and greet? And maybe we convince like Viterra or Cargill to join us that night and they do their market simulation game. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever done it, but they use their contracts, like their fancy contracts. And it's like a game where you have a simulation, a fictional crop year, and you get to pick which contracts you want to use. And you get to use them without any consequence. You get the charts, you get some of the fundamentals, some of the technical analysis, and then you get to pick these. And usually you do it with your table or with a couple people. And then sometimes they would score you as well. Like I've been to them where they said, hey, this group sold for the most money, did the best marketing. It's kind of fun, but we do that. And maybe we have just like a couple of beers while we're doing it. And it's optional. You don't have to show up to that if you don't want to. Maybe you're already an expert in those. But yeah, I kind of thought we could maybe kick it off with something like that. And then we spin that into wherever we are into the rest of the evening, right? We do that for an hour and a half and then away we go with more visiting and stuff like that. Day 2, we wake up, we have a breakfast, got to get the cobwebs out. Maybe we do a quick farmer like round table kind of Q&A session. And the reason we do that is to try to steer the day a little bit. Like, what are growers thinking about? What's on their mind? What do they want to get out of that day? So it kind of steers it a little bit. And maybe we record some action items or things we want to follow up with, by the time the day is done. And then from there, perhaps we get a merchant from like G3 to come talk to us about like the wheat market to the whole group. And then we get the canola merchant to come out and talk to us about the canola market. And then from there, maybe we get some specialty crop, either analysts or maybe some merchants, some traders as well. And we do breakout sessions. You want to learn about lentils, you go there. Peas is over there. Oats is over there. Mustard's over there. Something like that, where you go and make sure that you cover the crops that you're growing, on your farm. Maybe we do something like that as well. And then from there, maybe we get like some of the big analysts out there, the big, I shouldn't say the big guys, because there's men and women. But those folks come and give us their, market outlook on what they think is going to happen. And they throw in some advice and all that stuff. Maybe we put a couple of those folks up on the big stage and see what they have to say. It gives them a chance to promote themselves and what they're doing and have confidence in their recommendations, right? Maybe there's a few that would participate in that. And then from there, at lunchtime, some of this has probably happened after lunch, but, you bring in a lighter speaker, comedian, motivational speaker, something like that to pump us up a little bit. And then maybe we could split off again into groups where, one group goes and learns how to create their crop marketing plan. There's like an advisor team that steps up and says, Ryan, we want to come to this. And we're going to show farmers how to set up a crop marketing plan. Oh, and maybe there's like futures brokers, like RBC says, hey, we want to be there as well. And we'll do a breakout session where you just, learn how to work with your futures broker and the best way to work with your futures broker, like things like that. This is what's all on my mind here. And then everyone kind of comes back together for maybe a crop input presentation, maybe a fertilizer outlook or a fuel outlook, or maybe we look at purchasing trends, or maybe we bring in a negotiator. Like, man, the way I'm talking here, we need more than just a day to get this done, or a day and an evening. But yeah, maybe you get a nice little workbook at the start. You get to fill it out during the day, and you get to take that home, your 2025 crop marketing plan. I don't know, folks. And maybe we create a little community group after where people can, chat on like WhatsApp or Facebook, where they can connect and keep those, connections going or intros going. It's an idea. I don't know, folks, but let me know, Ryan, at whatthefuturespodcast.ca. Like, is this something that you're like, yeah, this is cool. This could be fun. Let me know. All right. Because I'm spending a lot of time. As you could tell, I am spending a lot of time thinking about this. We got to switch gears now to positive moments. I'm a positive guy, folks, but like, we had something happen on the farm last night that is just one of those things that is just such a pain in the butt. Okay. So I need to pour one out here for our farm for the 24 crop. All right. I know you're supposed to do that in different circumstances, but we had the big white combine show up on our farm last night. And so this, let's put this into perspective. I get the update that, we're going to roll here Tuesday. Things are going to start happening. It's going to be action day. And I'm kind of like waiting for my brother to send over like the first picture or something of what's going on. Anyway, I don't get anything. And I'm like, dude, hey, what happened? He's like, it rained. We're shut down. Tuesday night, like 10 o'clock at night, 9:30, 10, big white rolls through on our pea crop, on our barley. I don't want to sound like a whiner and a complainer and all that stuff, but it's one of those, kicks you right in the gut when you don't want this hailstorm. You want that hailstorm in like late June, early July, something like that. You don't want this one when combines are just about to roll, because what came with it was 3 inches of rain as well. And again, I'm playing my violin here, but it's frustrating. And, it is what it is. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last time. And we'll see where it all turns out, and go from there. So, all right, positive moments. Now, harvest is on, okay? And it's like, you might be like listening to this and saying, well, geez, Ron, I've been harvesting for 2 weeks already. But harvest is on for me as a consultant person. It's on for me because the chaos has started, and I love it. And what I mean by that is there's so many moving parts right now when it comes to crop markets, and the harvest results are so important. There's a lot of stuff to figure out. All right. And there's a bunch of stuff that you're trying to figure out before other people figure it out. You're trying to get ahead in certain things. You're trying to figure out quality. You're trying to figure out yield. You're trying to figure out how bad these yields are and why are so many people reporting bad yields. Like, you're trying to figure all this out. Pardon me. And then you're also trying to figure out spreads, protein spreads, grade spreads, light bushel weights, discount schedules. It comes at you all really, really fast at harvest time. It's chaos. And there's all these scenarios. As a consultant, you guys, the consultants listening, like, they get it. It's just text and call one after the other about, okay, what do I do here? What do I do with this? This is what I'm seeing. And it's a lot of fun. All right. So that is my positive moment, even though our harvest is going to be a little bit of a rough start here, or has been a rough start. Other than that, for positive moments, I think I'm going to leave it at that, because I had one more, but I want to save it for next week. So let's move on from positive moments to what's cool in crop marketing this week. From here, we'll go to the mailbag, and that's the bulk of this episode, is answering these questions. But I wanted to, and what's cool in crop marketing, I have a couple of things here that I just want to highlight. So we're going to start with, I'll just talk about Mike Lee for a second. So Mike Lee in Russia, if you don't subscribe to his stuff, he's very reasonable. His prices are very reasonable, and he's happy to do subscriptions with multiple people on the subscription. Anyways, he's in Russia, and he's come back with his Russian production numbers, and also for Ukraine. All right. And the Russian wheat number that he has, and I put a lot of faith in Mike. I followed his work for a long time. He does a good job. It is bigger than what is in the USDA reports. Okay. His wheat crop, Russian wheat crop, is bigger than what is reported in the USDA reports. That's all I'm going to say for you guys. Again, you should tune into him. He's got the numbers, and he's quite accurate. From there, when we come back closer to home here, and when we come back closer to home, I see yields coming in across the provinces. And, with the heat that we had and when the tap turned off here, we had phenomenal potential, phenomenal looking crops, as reported from a few folks, even myself as well. Like, I was sitting here saying crops were looking phenomenal as well. And they were. Like, that wasn't baloney. They were looking really good. But nothing, it's, it's not over until the crop's in the bin, right? And even at harvest time, the wrong events happen at harvest time, you can see yield losses. Like, I think back, many years ago with some of these darn, windstorms and stuff, but all should knock on wood for that. Anyway, it's not made until it's in the bin and it's weighed, and that's when right? But yields coming in across the prairies, so far early on, there's a couple coming in at average, or as expected, but there's quite a bit more coming in below average or quite a bit lower than expected. Okay. And so, where are we going to finish off the year? I'm not going to put a stake in that quite yet, but I do believe that we are going to see some reductions here in production totals in the December stats can. I'm not sure we'll get it in the September, but I think we'll get it. We'll get it in the December. But that's what we're watching, is how are these yields coming in and how is this progressing? And so far, we're hearing some light bushel weight out there as well, some small seed size. I can't really speak to anything other than that for quality right now. And we'll see as harvest moves further and further north, how things look. I expect, on the eastern side of the Peace region, central to east, it's going to be very, very good there. Like, that's where I expect above average. I expect above average in a good chunk of Manitoba. I'll be curious about Northeast Saskatchewan, where they fall in here. There are going to be some very good crops out there. But, I was looking at the weather maps today, and, Saskatchewan, I was looking at percent of average rainfall for the last 30 days and the last 60 days. And the entire province of Saskatchewan, I think, was under 40%. I don't know if that's the exact thing. I looked at a bunch of stuff, but anyways, it was dry. You guys know it was dry. So anyways, folks, we got to keep an eye on these yields, and that's going to set the stage for crop marketing. Now, I also want you to just remember, though, is that there's the production from 2024, and there's also the carryover. Okay. So if you've carried over, the most amount of barley we've ever carried over, that supply is available. If the canola carryover number, which is now, rumored or hinted to be at north of 3 million tons from last year, wasn't my number 3 to 3.5? I thought it was. Anyways, I have to look back, but there's that extra carried over. So remember, folks, it's production plus carryover here. What's available for supply. And it's going to come up here in the mailbag in just a second. But so keep that in mind when setting the stage here for your crop marketing. All right. So that's what's cool in crop marketing in a way. It's not cool, but it's relevant. Input prices. So I'm a believer that obviously we've been in a downtrend. That's just kind of common sense right now. But I'm a believer that your inputs are going to follow that to a certain degree. Now, the price of canola seed did not go down. All right. I'm sorry. If you didn't know that already, it didn't go down. I heard, actually, they're not affiliated with the show, but I heard that one company specifically has a big price increase but the ones affiliated with the show, not as big. So keep that in mind as you get your quotes. So I believe input prices, though, you like fertilizer, and even to some degree, you could look at fuel. Now, from a chart perspective, I'm not seeing it in the crude market. But when I look at fertilizer, urea, I look at some of the other inputs, the seed, the chemical, that sort of stuff. Like it comes down as well, or at least holds. And I finally caught wind here and read that some of the larger fertilizer analysts out there, they weren't sure what to think about the fertilizer market. Everyone's scared it's going to go higher, and it certainly can. But a few of them are acknowledging now that, hey, you know what? If corn is going to be $3.25, yeah, something. This market's not going to hold. Inputs, fertilizer, urea is not going to hold at current levels. All right. So, anyways, folks, input prices. I'm still a believer to keep your money in the bank account right now and not spend it at this time. Again, I don't know if that's the right thing to do. That's just my thought at this moment. All right, last thing here for what's cool in crop market, and I just wanted to open the curtain here a little bit about like the farm meetings that I've been a part of over the last number of days here, and what we're talking about in our consulting meetings. And so, when I sit down with a farm right now, I tell them like, hey, we're going to get together, but I just want to give you a heads up. We're not going to talk a lot about selling and marketing crops. Like, we're not really going to talk about that in the middle of August, because we've done our hard work already. Now, there may be an option strategy that we need to visit and put an exit strategy in place, or we might review grain contracts. Well, we do review grain contracts, but our meetings right now are about execution and executing on what we already have contracted. So, we sit down and we figure out what we have sold. How does that match with cash flow? And today specifically, I asked, what month do we run out of cash? Because, to tie this together a little bit, someone asked me the other day if I was scared of these crop markets and of these prices. And I was like, that's kind of a weird question. Like, no, I'm not scared of them, but they're terrible. Like, and they're going to get worse. So yeah, like I'm not scared of them, but it's kind of a weird question. But then I had a farm tell me that, hey, I need to sell something for cash flow in September. And that scared me. And I was like, okay. Ryan, remember your training. What do we do here? And anyways, trying to figure out, here's the crop mix you're growing. Which crop should we hold? Which one should we sell? What tools are available to us? Can we be bullish on basis at all? To what degree between now and September? Like all these things, right? And I'm like, geez, that scares me when someone says, hey, I need to sell something for cash flow in September, October. Yeah, that's going to keep me up at night. And so with the consulting meetings right now, we talk about, delivering on the current plan that we have, and then setting up, when do we need to make that next sale from a cash flow perspective? And the cool thing here is that most of those discussions are well into the new year, which is good. But again, in our meetings over the last couple of days here, hey, I want you to be X percent sold, 50% sold, for example. Well, that now has turned into 60 or 70 or 80, right? And we don't know yet. We don't know the yields quite yet, but we're making some guesses on a yield reduction. And again, with the heat, we're a little bit further sold than what we thought. Now, hey, I've got no qualms with it. I have no problems when someone says, oh man, like now instead of 50, I'm 65% sold. Oh, but I'm $1.50 or $2 ahead of the market today. Like, totally fine with that. We can market around that and navigate around that. So mailbag segment sponsored by Pioneer Seeds. Our last month, this is our last month of giving away that wonderful 3-gallon bucket cooler and breakaway speaker, Bluetooth speaker. Last one we sent up north. This one we'll draw for here at the end of the month. And whoever wins this should have it for a little bit of harvest, I would think. Yeah, even the folks in the south, I think, are still going to be grinding away for a while. So there we go. All right, first question. So this comes in. Some of these are anonymous. Some of them have a name. And there are basically 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say 5 questions, and then a couple I need to kick down the road. But the first one is, how would you approach landlord discussions and opportunities? Now, in this scenario, new ground is being offered to the farmer. Okay, so farmer is retiring and offering it, first person's getting a chance to do this. And so like across the prairies, your rents are they're all over the place, right? Like there's some stuff that I can't even speak for what the lowest number would be and what the highest number would be. And that's not my point in answering this question. What I would do is that I would try to get a 1-year deal done. And you sit there and say, Ryan, are you nuts? Like, we want security. Like, I want 3, 5, 10 years of security here. Like, I want to know I'm farming that ground. But just hear me out for a second. Like, if you have now reached the current peak of land rental values, like, are you willing, your farm, are you willing to sign the next 5 years up at this number, at this peak? Now, will land rental values be higher in the future? Yes, without a doubt, they'll be higher in the future, right? But could there be a little pause in land rental values? Could it make sense, again, depending on who you're dealing with on the other side here, to go to your landlord and say, hey, like, we're in a bit of a transition year from, a commodity perspective. We're coming off the highs. We're still trying to find these lows. No one has told me exactly where these lows are. So would you mind if we did a 1-year contract, see how this works out, and have a discussion next year? And if things smarten up and my returns are looking good, perfect. You get a raise, where we can maybe do something more long-term. But if I'm still searching for a bottom in this market, I'd like that flexibility to have that conversation again. Some of you might be falling off your chair right now saying, this guy is nuts. Like, no one's doing this. But just think about that for a minute. Like, if it were me being offered ground at the highest rent that I've ever paid, and I have to do it for 5 years or 7 years, I don't think I want that action right now. Because I might have 3 or 4 years really, really tough in there. I guess on the 7-year deal, that's only halfway, but like, I don't think I can recover those losses. I don't know, folks. It's just like, that's what I thought about, was just short-term deal, 1 year, because we all dream, when you're renting ground, you all dream that your landlord phones you up and says, hey, let's write a contract up where commodity prices, your returns, your margins drop, my rental price drops. If it goes up, my rental price goes up. Like, in crop share, that kind of happens at times, but not really, because crop share, if you're going to do 20, 25, 30% crop share, like, some of these got pretty crazy, guys. You know what I'm talking about. Like, there is some risk shared there, but it's still, you're paying a pretty steep premium. But if you could get a landlord to buy into your farm and what you're going through, I don't know. It's far and few, but that's what I would do. I try to do something short term, and then again, in good faith, negotiate next year. And if things are worse economically, then hopefully that's represented in your deal. Okay. Now, I would love to hear feedback on that. If you are willing to email me and say what you really think about that. All right. Now, here's a fun one. Impending rail strike. Any thoughts on how space will be allocated? As I said, fun one here. I probably, that was a little insensitive. Rail strike is not fun, but I texted some buyers, some people working at grain elevators, and the response that I got, well, number one, it gave me a bit of hope here on price recovery. And number two, it was interesting the differences at different companies. Okay, so how is space going to be allocated if there's a rail strike, poor rail car movement, or no movement, I guess. And so like a grain elevator. So for, back when a long time ago, I was a grain buyer. And so we'd get the plan here in like July, and they'd say that can's canola, that can's CPS wheat or feed barley. These house bins, the big ones, are going to be hard red by this protein and grade, and this is what we need to get to Vancouver. And then you always needed a bin to turn things and to keep things some flexibility, right? It didn't have to be the biggest bin. But like if I'm a grain company and there's going to be a rail strike, that like Vancouver, what Vancouver needs, what I have, like there's no guarantee that will stay the same. So you have to be a little bit cautious here as a grain elevator on what you're going to take in, I think. But anyways, here's the responses I got. I'm going to do this anonymously because these folks were kind enough to share their opinion. But all right. I said, I have this question for the podcast. What do you think? Impending rail strike. We'd have September delivery contracts. How will space be allocated? And so he says, we will be, elevator number one, we will be allocating with a priority on existing contracts. Makes sense? You have an existing contract, you're the priority. Now, that being said, if someone calls and starts harvesting with no contract, and guys that have contracts aren't phoning, they will get to haul, right? We have good space going into harvest right now. We may take spot grain, but we're also going to be careful so that we can honor existing contracts. Hopefully the strike doesn't last long and we can get shipping before we get plugged up. We will make sure grain priced for August and September gets priority, especially grain committed to us weeks and months ago versus grain priced in the last week. So if you contracted a long time ago, you are going to get a priority with this company. We have space for peas. We have space for feed barley over what we have on paper right now. So they can buy more peas. They can buy more feed barley. All righty. So what I caught out of that too, though, is they have some capacity to buy in September. Like that was my biggest light bulb. And that's what every one of these buyers told me is they have capacity to buy in September. You know how I was talking about the sold out sign going up? I usually don't put too much stock into that, but there's a few locations I thought, geez, maybe there's something there. But, it's just nice to know that there is capacity and there is space to do some contracting, because that to me is positive for basis levels to potentially improve, especially if yields come in below expectations. All right. So that was elevator number one. Elevator number two. Hey, great question. I'm sure this is looming on a lot of producers' minds coming down to crunch time. We got CN to bring another train on Monday, so we're pretty much cleaned out in preparation for the strike. We have made sure not to overcontract anything as well and have room for everything on the books. All contracts will be brought in first, and any room remaining will be first come, first serve. Our prediction is the strike won't last more than a week and hopefully have things rolling end of September again. Anyways, so here they're empty. They're going to honor their contracts, and contracts will be brought in first, and then anything left, you'll be able to contract and go in. Again, another elevator, different area, different company with capacity in September. Okay. Now, the third one, I'm just gonna say, I'm not gonna read it word for word because it's yeah. Anyways, I'm just gonna say from their perspective, elevator number 3, from their perspective, there were lots of moving parts. And what I'll say about elevator number 3 is they, like, in years where we had really tough harvests and years where we had quality stuff issues, like they work pretty hard to kind of keep a lot of people going and flowing, and they do a good job of that. Like, just to not put favors towards one person, but just kind of leave things going, or get everyone kind of lined up together. Like, I didn't want to say like wheat board days where everyone had to haul so many tons, but anyways, I feel like they do a pretty good job. But anyways, for them, their circumstances were evolving. The one thing they said is they don't expect the strike to last very long, but even a week delay would cause ripples into November for their company and their facility. All right. So 1 week will cause ripples into November. And they said, like, yeah, we're going to honor contracts first, but is this someone that's just contracted with us for the first time on Monday and to buy space, or is this someone that we always buy grain from? Like, that would come into play. They from a quality perspective, what do we need? Certain people may get priority based on they have what we need. Things along those lines, which also made sense, right? And so, they're going to try to navigate what's going to happen here and line up with Vancouver as well. But they also had capacity to buy in September. And like, this is from a different province than the other guys that I talked to. So anyways, I messaged about 10 different buyers, and I'm not going to go through all the responses, but those are the ones, that are pretty telling, I thought. And, as a farmer in this situation, this gentleman has a lot of September and not a lot of extra bin space. So movement is very important. And so it's going to come down to communication, being in touch with that buyer. You might have to do a contract somewhere else. As you can tell, there is capacity. But like, if the rail goes on strike, obviously it's going to be crippling. It's going to throw a wrench in the gears for sure, for I don't know how much time, but for an amount of time. And, if you're a 30, 40, 50,000 ton facility, that's all you have. That's it. And you want to make sure that what you have in store is what you need for your export program as well. And the whole export program, those vessels, they're going to wait, and basis levels are going to be bad and really bad, until this smartens up. Companies may put up a sold out sign and say, we're just not contracting. But as you can tell, they have room to contract. So basis, right? It might not be that pretty. And so anyways, the whole system here gets jumbled, and it's going to take time to get sorted out when the strike happens. Okay. So communicate if movement and cash flow is that, priority number 1 for you. Just be in communication with your buyers and say, how do I fit into the plan? I'm going to be harvesting these days. Like, what can we do? And you might, you listening here, like, let's say you're a farm that normally, harvests and then on a rain day fires up the trucks and does a bunch of hauling, or maybe you don't have capacity to haul off the combine. It may be worthwhile, if they're giving you the delivery opportunity, to make that delivery happen, even if it results in a little extra cost for a trucker or something like that. Like, if cash flow and movement is that important to you, I'd be like making sure that if I get allocated something during a strike, I'm filling my allocation no matter what. Even if I have to shut the combine down for a bit because BAMWX has told me that the forecast for September, October is warmer and drier here. So, hey, might have a nice harvest window. All right, moving on now. So what is your outlook for oats? And what is your outlook for oats? That comes in from Darren. All right. Here's what I found interesting about oats. So even with like old crop, the buyers had premiums on in August, like in Alberta specifically. I can't speak for, I didn't notice it anywhere else, but in Alberta specifically, they did have premiums for August oats over the last couple of weeks. And so to me, that was a good sign that carryover is not going to be super burdensome by any means. The interesting thing on the oat crop for me, from an outlook perspective, comes down to quality. Are we going to see with the heat, are we going to see some light bushel weight out there? Are we going to see oats not make milling quality? And because if you start to see that as an issue, then the price gains are going to be a bit more advantageous, right? Now, carryover, I'm not super concerned about. Acres were not that high. Yield though, Manitoba, Northeast Saskatchewan, Peace Country, how many oat acres are in there? There might be a lot of good quality oats out of those regions with that extra moisture, right? So I'm certainly, I don't know exactly where to turn on this now, but I feel that if you take your oat and put it in the bin, it's going to appreciate in value. But as I've been talking about with a few folks, I'm not expecting those extremes. If you take your feed barley and put it in the bin, I'm not expecting a huge gain into next spring. Same thing with oats at this time. But if we have a weight issue, if we have a quality issue, that price will pick up a lot faster. And hey, I'll be curious to see how it all plays out. Production does not scare me to lower price even more. Lower corn prices, soybean prices, U.S. markets, that is a weight that hangs over the markets. But Darren, for you on your oats, I would think that price appreciation is definitely in the cards. And if there's a quality issue, we're going to see some gains. I just don't think we go from $4 to $5 that quickly. But hey, next spring and summer might be a bit exciting with oats if we have a quality issue. So kind of half answering that. Downside, I'd say, is limited though right now. Next one came in on barley outlook. Will much lower barley yields and lightweight rally the feed barley market by the new year? My short answer is no. It will not rally the barley market by the new year because we've carried over too much feed barley. Alrighty? Too much really good quality feed barley. So we also have this corn problem where the U.S. is going to grow a record corn crop, and we're very versed. We're very good now at bringing corn from the U.S. into Canada. We've done a lot of it over the last couple of years. And I think barley is a crop that can appreciate in value slowly, but from an interest rate perspective, from a money perspective, to hold your barley well into next spring or summer, I actually don't even think that will pencil out at the end of the day. Like again, the heat had a big impact on barley. I have to see more harvest results, but I think barley is a crop that I pick my cash flow gap, November, December, whenever that is. I set a target, I get my barley sold, and I move on. And I don't think it's worth stressing over into next spring. Of course, if we're in a drought situation next spring, so on and so forth, but like we have a lot of feed grains around. I was chatting with my father-in-law the other day, and his same acres of hay year over year, his bales are, he's got 40% more bales this year than last year. Again, it's just one guy in one spot, but we do have a pretty good hay or feed availability across the prairies. Anyways, from the barley side, it would be one that I just pick my cash flow month. Now, if it's malt, that's a different story. We need to figure out this malt story yet. But for feed barley, pick your month, fill your cash flow gap, and just get your barley sold here. Don't fire sale it off like tomorrow, but get through your harvest low here, and then make your game plan from there. All right. Last question I'll answer. I'll kick the other ones down the road here. What crop would you store, and which would you move by Christmas for cash flow? Well, I kind of answered that on the barley side. I would definitely move barley for cash flow. But what crop would I store would be canola. Even the scenario came up today. I had a grower say, hey, I have a load left. Do I dump it against my September contract, or do I sell it now at current prices? And my thought was to put it against the September contract because, that load, I don't know what he'd be offered today, 13 something. You can dump it on the September contract for 15. And by holding your canola into next year, I could definitely see the scenario where you get another sniff at $15 canola. And so I think here, even though we have a little higher carryover, production numbers, again, jury's out right now, but it looks like canola is going to have been impacted the most here by the heat, the way it's looking to me. And I think we tighten up ending stocks for next year. I know the soybean side of this equation is negative. I know most of the news on veg oils is negative right now. I'm not saying that we're going into a screaming rally for sure on the canola market, but that is the crop I would store. I'm probably marketing wheat, especially with the Russian number being higher. The way that I look at wheat marketing is very simple, but obviously Argentina we can keep an eye on, and there's some importance there. But I find marketing wheat during the winter is challenging. You've got the Northern Hemisphere wheat crop in the bin. You've got the next crop planted. If nothing comes out of that's significant for a rally, I find it challenging. So I like moving wheat, especially if you produce something that is in demand that maybe other people didn't produce. Like if you produced a number 214 protein and early on in the year, there's that demand for that. Someone's paying a nice premium for that. Well, yeah, I'd like to move that. Or if you produce something with, a 312 and the discounts aren't that bad, well, then I like moving that too, right? But I just think wheat, the appreciation in wheat prices, it can happen in the spring and in the summer for sure. It does all the time. But if it's between now and Christmas, I'm a wheat seller and I'm holding canola. So that's where I'm at on that. The next questions, I'm just going to kick them down the road because I'm talking a lot and losing, not losing my voice, but it's starting to get scratchy here. So we're going to talk fall cattle run in a couple of weeks with Ryan Copperthorne. I have a question about agri-stability and government support programs. I'm actually going to circle in. I'll bring in a banker or somebody like that in a future episode to tackle that. So I really appreciate you guys sending in those questions. I hope that was helpful. And I know this episode is starting to run a bit long here. But anyways, I appreciate all those questions. Keep them coming. Ryan with the futurespodcast.ca. The mailbag is sponsored by Pioneer Seeds. All right. Well, let's wrap this thing up with eating your veggies. Brought to you by the Lunchbox crew. Head over to ryandenis.ca to check out how we can work together and collaborate. 3 quick ones. Number 1, cash flow review. That was a big theme in today's episode. Review your cash flow. What month do you run out of cash? When is it? When is it 0 or negative? When do you fall behind? Okay. Number 2, which crop are you going to sell to fill that cash flow gap or to fill that month? That's step 2, or number 2 for eating your veggies. And number 3, I think that you should get some wheat targets out there. Okay. September wheat targets, again, on theme with some of these gaps here. I know rails there, but some of these gaps, companies looking. Like, I would set a wheat target. I would set at a minimum 50 cents above the market right now. 50 cents, 60 cents in there. I would set those out. And as I told a grower the other day, you don't have to do 1,000 tons. One load gets you an email, a text message, or a phone call saying that this thing hit. And then you can add a 0 to the contract if you want, right? You can say, oh, cool, that hit. That's a number I need. Let's do more. And put them at a few different companies, see who bites first. I don't know. It's starting to feel a bit more competitive out there. And I'm just, on wheat, hard red spring wheat, I would dangle a few targets out there. I take a look at it. I think the wheat crops did the best out of all this dryness. I think Russia's crop is fine. Our crop's going to be pretty big on wheat. U.S. crop's going to be pretty big as well, obviously, for spring wheat. I don't know, folks. The more I think about this, geez, we might have to sell even more wheat before Christmas than I was thinking. All right. If you found this episode useful, I know it was just me today, solo, for episode number 40. But, share it with a friend, a neighbor, a colleague, someone in your local ag community. Spread the word about the What the Futures podcast. I would appreciate it. Of course, strategies we talked about, prices we talked about. Everything can change. Please seek the advice of a professional. They're out there. Go seek them out. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, email me or head over to ryandini.ca. Have a good weekend, folks. This was a grind of an episode. If you made it this far, I should actually, at the very end of these episodes, that's where I should throw like my prize stuff. But what should we do here? Okay. Yeah. If you've made it this far, if you've made it to minute 57 of episode 40, send me an email. Let me know you made it. I don't think anyone really made it this far. I can't see it being many. Anyways, send me an email. I don't know. I'll put together. I've got some rival trade brews I can put together. I got these lunch kits I'm filling for the Lunchbox crew for harvest. I'll think of something. Email me. I'll think of a little prize pack for you for sticking it out to minute 57. I'll put everyone's names in a hat and see what we can come up with. All right, folks. I'm out.